Evening. Welcome to the Selectmen's meeting for the 23rd of October, 2018. Could I get a roll call, please?
Miller present.
Sulicio's present, so I call the meeting to order. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. To announce that the meeting is being recorded. Anybody else taping? No. Chairman's additions or deletions, we added 2.1.1, which is a discussion on regional dispatch subcommittee. Public comment period. No? Okay. We have folks here from the union to talk about the executives, to do the executive session. I'm just wondering if we could...
First.
Well, I was going to switch that around, but one second, I just want to see what else is here. Paul's not here yet, huh?
No, but I can handle it.
I was just wondering if we should just run through the new business quickly,
Sure.
so that folks who are here just for those quickie things could go. So I'm going to skip 2.1 for now. We'll come back to that after. Down to 3.1. Review approved change order number 7, the amount of $2,635 for the West Townsend Fire Station project.
I move that the board approve change order number 7 for the amount of $2,635 for the West Townsend Fire Station project.
Second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are they almost done cutting?
Yes.
It's looking good.
Yeah, it is coming together nicely. They got
Yeah.
base coat of paving down too.
Yeah, it looks really nice. Is it?
Yeah. Just you.
Thanks. 3.2, review, approve a road opening permit for Unitil regarding Cross Street.
I move the board approve a road opening permit for Unitil RE Cross Street.
I'll second that. Any questions?
It's pretty straightforward.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 3.3, review, approve one-day special licenses for Terry Roy, VFW Post 6538 for the following dates. October 27th, 2018, with serving hours from 7 to 11 in conjunction with the birthday party. November 10th, 2018, with serving hours from 7 to 11 p.m. in conjunction with the birthday party. And November 17th, 2018, with serving hours from 12 to 4 p.m. in conjunction with a baby shower.
I move the board approve one-day special licenses for Terry Roy, VFW Post 6538 for the following dates. October 27, 2018, with serving hours from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. in conjunction with the birthday party. November 10th, 2018, with serving hours from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. in conjunction with the birthday party. And November 17th, 2018, with serving hours from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. in conjunction with a baby shower.
Second. Discussion?
You don't have any?
The only thing I would say is please, folks, remember, we need 30 days. This almost didn't get on the agenda. And one of them is in a few days, so. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 3.4, review approved classification and/or vacancy in a water department position. I'm going to wait for Jim to come back, but you can make a motion.
I move we review and/or approve classification and/or vacancy in a water department position.
Second. Guess it should be approved. Because review we're going to do anyway.
It's kind of redundant.
Jim, we just moved on 3-4.
Yep.
What did we get?
Well, you have some information in your packets that came in from Superintendent Rayfuse regarding the interest in posting for a water technician and potentially, if a job description had been approved by the Board of Water Commissioners and was able to be rated in time for the meeting tonight, a new position of Water Department Operations Foreman. I did receive a copy of a job description from Paul last night and was able to classify it today. I have copies of the position rating sheet and the job description. And I don't know, Lance, if you have one. So the job description that you see in this packet is, as was forwarded to me from Paul, as having been approved by the commissioners. When you look at the position rating summary sheet on the top, it follows the HRS protocol and the policy that the board has for classification of new positions. And going down the list comes out with a total of 303 points, which puts it at a grade 8. And my understanding is based upon an external comp in our area that is of particular relevance right now. This grade 8 puts it right smack within that same market.
So hopefully we would not have as much difficulty with applicants.
Correct.
Who else, what other positions, I should say, are in that grade? I don't remember offhand.
Do you have it?
Thank you.
This is for foreman, you said?
This would be the form. Yeah, Water Department Operations Foreman. It should say it right on the top of the sheet there.
Yeah, we kind of got it.
Get cut off.
No, it's on the other side of the other one. Yeah, there you
They
go.
go together, yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, folks, it's the first time we've seen it.
Yeah, this is a pretty expedited effort at getting this done.
Is the position open yet?
The person that's presently in the position is leaving,
Have they given notice, I guess? That's my
yes,
question.
but we don't have an exact time frame yet.
They turned in their resignation to the town clerk,
Not yet.
then it's not,
They
Official
informed the
yet.
superintendent.
it's not official
Okay, I understand.
yet, but that's okay, we can still post pending.
Sure.
Well, it becomes a question of what the commissioners are asking to have posted. Leading up to tonight, it was the possibility of one or the other, if timing allowed us to get the foreman position description approved by the commissioners and then classified pursuant to the policy. So we have that before us, so I guess it'd be
It will be
appropriate to
the
ask.
foreman position.
So you're not seeking the posting of the water tech position that is currently
No,
occupied?
because we need somebody with all the licenses and credentials to hit the ground running. We don't have the opportunity or the time to train somebody new. We need somebody that can go into on-call work right away.
So it's not a case of looking to declare vacancy of the water tech position that is currently occupied that we expect to be vacated, but we don't yet have officially
That's right,
notice to the
because
clerk.
the current position is the water tech.
Right, so that one is being put aside,
Yes.
and then this is before you as the request of
new
the
position.
commissioners. Correct.
So would the motion have to be for a new position?
It would be to, well, there'd be multiple steps that'd be required. One would be to approve the classification of the Water Department Operations Foreman.
The new job description for water operations foreman, right?
Both. It would be, but they're three things. One is approving the job description, one is approving the rating, and one is declaring it vacant.
Okay. Do we do those in one motion?
God bless you. Absolutely.
Wayne, you want to withdraw your other?
I withdraw my other motion.
Carolyn's not here. Want to just make sure she gets it straight.
It's being recorded. So we got it.
Give me a second. Looks okay to me.
Okay. I thought it was fine. Move that board approve the classification, the
Job description.
job description classification, the rating of class 8.
Grade 8, yep.
Grade 8, and declare the vacancy for the new position.
Second.
Take it all?
The job description,
Classification, rating.
the classification rating, and the posting, all in one. All in one. Okay, thank you, Carolyn. I just want to take a peek at this.
Right near your thumb.
I see.
You'll note when you look at the classification sheet, the numbers that drive it to the 8 are pretty, I think, self-evident. You have knowledge, training, and education, obviously the licenses that are contemplated in the job description and the certifications, put that at that 45 points. Physical skills and effort, obviously it's a physical position, it's a working foreman position. Experience, they're contemplating over 4. And then you get down to judgment and initiative.
We're
And
over 4, help me.
I'm looking at the rating summary sheet.
Yeah,
Yep, in the job description, it says, under page 3, education, training, and experience, minimum of 4 years' experience.
oh, I see it, okay.
But then it has special requirements, which really are things that add the to the requirement, because they're required to hold all of those specific technical licenses.
You good? All those in favor? Aye.
Good to go.
Question? So, kind of a dumb question maybe, but just to be a little proactive, do we have to wait till Mike gives his resignation before we post this, or?
Financially, you don't have the ability currently to fund both positions, so as long as you have a tech on staff that you have a requirement to fund, you couldn't pay for a foreman, so you need to make sure the timing works out, that you don't end up with 2 bodies that you can't pay for.
Technically, they could post, but not hire.
Yeah. It's just, you can't have them both on the clock.
So there's no allowable overlap for training at all?
I would look at Paul to look through his budget and determine what he's got there. When Paul and I talked Friday, I believe, he'd indicated that he believed that even though there would be a higher rate of pay for a foreman's position, that he could cover it within the budget, based on the fact that he's brought the other 2 in, the other 2 techs in at a lower rate.
Right.
Whether there's enough to provide for overlap, I'm not certain, but
Okay,
that'd be
I'll discuss it.
a manager's decision for Paul.
Okay.
So your board already voted on this, right?
Yep, we approved it last night.
Is that? Okay. Let's skip down then to, if it's all right with you,
Yes, please.
to number 5, executive session.
I move the board move into executive session.
Yeah, I know, you gotta read the whole thing.
Got it. I move the board, I'm trying to get out of there.
No.
I move the board move into executive session pursuant to General Law C-30A, S-21A3 to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detriment effect on the bargaining position or litigating position, and the chair so declares for AFSCME Supervisory Union Lieutenant and AFSCME Police Union Grievance.
And I do declare. Second. Roll call, please.
Wayne Miller, yes?
Sue Lizio, yes. It's going to be taking a break to go into executive session, so whoever
I we will be coming out.
Isn't, and we will be coming back and,
At the end of.
and I will second that addition. All those in favor, we did that.
Miller, aye.
Silicio, aye. Okay, good. Welcome back. We just came back from executive session. We have a vote on the lieutenant's addendum to the
Yes.
contract. What would you like for a motion? Move to ratify and sign out of session?
Yep, move to ratify the negotiated addendum to the supervisors union regarding lieutenant position and sign out of session.
I move that the board ratify the amended addendum to the lieutenant's MOU for the supervisors union, no?
Addendum to the supervisor's contract regarding the lieutenant and sign out of session.
What he said.
Trying to think that.
You got that, Karen?
I do.
Okay.
Can I read it?
Move the board ratify the addendum to the supervisor's contract for the lieutenant.
Move.
You can see my
Thank you.
scribbles.
I move the board ratify the addendum to the supervisor's contract for the lieutenant and sign out of session.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, I was hearing two things.
Yep, that's fine. Okay. So we're back. 2.1, Neshoba Valley Regional Dispatch discussion regarding admin and finance boards. And we'll just do that one first. Chief Boynton is on the operations board, and he
Correct.
asked that he just be on that one, not on the admin. And so we need somebody for the admin board. Although I guess the chief is also
We do currently have the chief by vote of the board.
as an alternate, right?
Having been appointed as alternate for the admin board.
So do we need another body as well?
I'd be happy to step back into the void if the board thought it of value. I had tried to leave it to the chiefs respectively, but if you think there's value, I'd be happy to step back in.
I think especially on the admin board, that might be a good thing, okay? The other town administrators are, you know, that's made up of other town administrators as well. And, yeah, for a number of reasons, I'd appreciate it if you would.
You got it.
Jet,
No,
with
fine.
me on that?
Yep.
Okay. Do you need a vote on that?
I think there's one already that I was named and they were listed as the alternate, so I think we're good.
Okay, so we're all set on that. Finance board. Lori went, and tell us about what happened with Lori.
Even before what happened with Lori, about 2 months ago, it was reported out of the admin board that the legislation required that there be a finance board that they had neglected to recognize was needed to be done. So at the admin board, they voted that it would be comprised of the town accountants or finance directors from each respective community. Whether they have the authority to do that or not is a separate question. I don't know that they can appoint somebody that's not their agent. So that's a separate issue. But Lori did go at the request of the admin board, and she was advised, as were the other finance folks that day, that they are responsible to create the budget for the dispatch center. And she's a polite woman and didn't say what she was thinking, and came back and said what she was thinking to me. Which, she's less polite in my office.
So here's, okay. I think it's a good idea that you're,
So they have some work to do, is what you're telling me?
Yes, they do. They do. And
Yeah.
it's, for my 2 cents, you should not have 7 or 8 finance officials creating a budget for an off-site operation that they have no direct firsthand
well,
knowledge
that'd
of.
be like our finance committee doing the police budget. As much as they might think they could or would like to, I'd rather give that to the experts that are running the show.
Yeah, it's
I
a
mean, I can
stretch.
see the finance board or committee, whatever they call it, giving input. And
Or at least the admin board reporting out to the respective finance officers
here's the budget.
on a monthly basis, year to date, here's where we are.
Yeah.
So when the assessment discussion takes place in the subsequent year, you've got a year's worth of history to look back and see where things are.
Okay.
But it seemed like a little bit of
Okay,
shuffling the workload
so,
off the table and out the door.
that might be something that you can discuss at the next admin meeting.
You got it.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it if you make a super effort to get there. Especially since your peers from the other towns are there too. 211, formation of a regional Pepperell Ashby Townsend dispatch subcommittee and membership discussion. And I'm not really sure what I meant by this. Let me tell you what I meant by this. I've been talking to folks, and I went to an admin meeting, and I went to an operations meeting, and I've been reading the minutes from Neshoba, and Chief Boynton's been going to the meetings that just started a couple weeks ago with Pepperell and Ashby to kind of map out what do they need to do. I really think that a member of this board needs to be appointed to that committee, to the Pepperell Ashby Townsend one. Just,
I think you currently have a vote of record that Wayne
I'm the liaison, right?
is the liaison for that effort if it's to take place.
But I'd be happy to step in and do that.
the meetings are during the day,
Okay.
so as long as you can commit to it.
I'll make the ones I can make. I mean, I
Perfect.
can't give you any promises.
Perfect, wonderful, okay. Meanwhile, I've been talking back and forth with Rep. Harrington. She, the last, when we spoke, the governor's office was trying to get a date for a meeting for the Neshoba side, for all the parties to kind of get together and say, what's the exit strategy here, and hopefully she'll get that going for November. If you don't mind, I'd like to continue on that side of it.
Mhm.
Maybe involve you coming
Yeah.
to those too,
Yeah,
okay? But I just wanted the blessing of the board to continue to work with the state and
You do that part, and I'll do
911
my
and all
part.
of that, okay? Does that work?
There's another little part.
Yeah.
There is Pepperell, Ashby, Townsend, Ashby, Pepperell, Pat or TAP, regional group meeting.
Well, that's what I was
They
ref-
post, they have minutes.
But that was the one that I thought you were talking about Wayne going to.
I am, but my point is, we've not appointed the fire chief in any official sense to that, yet he's attending,
Oh, well-
as he should be.
Well, then let's
But-
appoint him to that too.
I think, they're existing and they're functioning, but he doesn't really have, it's obvious that he would, but he doesn't have an official vote of the board saying that he should be in the room at that table.
Well, I move we appoint the fire chief to the Townsend Asheville Pepperell
And to join you in that,
and add my name to that list as well.
okay,
Gotcha.
second. What are we calling that? Pepperell Ashby Townsend?
That group.
The Pat Communication Group has a new name,
Okay.
okay? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, good.
Patcom.
So, do I have official okay to do work with the state and Neshoba as well?
I move that Sue Lizio continue her work with the Neshoba Valley.
And report back to the board?
Report back to the board.
Second. All those in favor? Aye, good. Just to make sure all stuff is getting
So can you
handled.
make sure that I get emailed,
Absolutely.
please? Yep.
4.1, town properties bylaw. How many people do we have so far that have signed up for the town properties? We had Jerry,
Last time,
Jerry, Natalie,
and, was it Andrea, and Vicky Tip,
Yes, 4. So we need 3 more.
who were supposed to be at large, and I think Jim Smith's gonna join from the highway, because one from the
Okay,
highway.
good.
so you need one from the highway,
So we need 2 volunteers.
and,
2
well,
large volunteers left, yeah.
Two at large, yeah.
who appointed these? I mean, Vicky's from assessors.
You appoint them,
Well, no, I mean, who,
Vicky's assessors, Andrea was
it
finance.
says one member from the Conservation Commission,
Mhm.
one from the Highway Department,
Jim's going to do that.
member of FinCom, so that's Andrea, or Jerry. Natalie,
I think she was planning board. Look at
Jerry might have been planning too, I don't
She might
know.
have been- Yeah, I think Jerry was planning, maybe. Not sure what Natalie was.
Okay, so once all these people are appointed, says the, well, see, this is kind of strange. This is strange, the way that it's written to me. It says the board will maintain a standing inventory list. Well, usually when you say the board, you're talking about the Board of Selectmen.
The REIT committee.
I'm
Should say
assuming.
TPC.
I'm assuming that's the committee. Maintain a standing inventory of town-owned real estate and personal property. Such inventory will be annually updated with each town department notifying the committee of newly acquired and recently disposed of property. I'm not sure about how that's worded either. Committee will annually furnish the town accountant with an updated inventory listing, and I think the town accountant has that
Correct.
anyway, okay? So it might be kind of the reverse of that. And the TPC will prepare for the Board of Selectmen an annual property maintenance proposal and a proposed budget. I'm going to put a question mark on that. I mean, I just don't think the role is necessarily, good, okay, thank you. I don't think that the role is, it doesn't quite fit today, so it looks like some of this stuff might need to be looked at.
Special town meeting
Yeah,
revision.
please. Because, I mean, it's from 1997, so,
It was Christine Patel, sorry, I looked at the last agenda.
Conservation.
Christine Vitale was conservation.
Yeah.
thanks. Okay, charged with assisting the Board of Selectmen in reviewing all proposals for the acquisition or sale of real estate within 90 days after receiving written notification by the Board of Selectmen of a proposal to acquire or sell real estate. The TPC will report back to the Selectmen with a report containing recommendations as follows: property strategic value, findings of any appraisals, findings of site visits, engineering studies, etc., post-acquisition management plan, proposed language for town meeting articles, and suggested means for funding the acquisition. Role of the TPC shall be advisory only and shall not supersede the role or duty of any other board or officer empowered by statute. So they're like a helping committee. I thank these people for volunteering as well. And I think it's going to be enlightening anyway for them to look at that and say, you know, what is available or what are we doing with
Right.
different pieces of property rather than us kind of doing that piecemeal, which is unfortunately what we've been doing, so. Good to know that some folks are
So, Madam Chair,
signing up.
if you have any suggestions as members of the board for edits to this, I'll start a live draft in anticipation of the special town meeting. So if there are things that you think need, obviously we'll change board to committee, things like that. But if there are other more substantive things that you think are important to seek a change on, just let me know and I'll get that draft.
Yeah, I think it's really, from a process perspective too, it just might be a little clunky. I think boards work, committees work better when they have more specific direction, if you will.
Yep.
Put that over there. Okay, 4.2, discussion regarding selectmen's and personnel policy revisions, updates, the process, the matrix. I put that on there because I think we need to step back for a minute. We've been doing, which I'm glad about, we've been creating some selectmen policies, and some of them have been necessary for clarification purposes, if nothing else. And this really kind of dovetails into 4.3, that we have new town council. I was looking at some of the policies that we call Board of Selectmen policies, and even some that are on this agenda. And to me, there's some overlap, and they really feel like they should be personnel policies, you know, because they're related more to people and behavior and the way that things are done. And I'd like to suggest that we take these and we just kind of put them aside until we can have a discussion with town council.
I would agree with that. We were talking about this before the meeting, that they're setting up their workday.
Do we get the first day?
Your call. Yeah, they're actually coming to the department head meeting next month, so November 13th, I think. And after that, you know, whatever your pleasure is on office hours, whether it's something that's done open door, or whether it's done in Lunenburg, they do 20-minute slots that are booked in advance, so.
Yeah, I think probably that's my feeling is.
I think that'd be a good first start with them to kind of later.
I would like to have the opportunity for us to talk with town council, maybe for the first
Just to review our
couple
goals.
hours or something, you know? So if we can make an appointment, if you will, for when they'll come out.
When I met with Attorney Costa last week, he had to come and get some files so he can start the transition. They're not officially our town council and labor council until the 1st.
Right.
But he's trying to get a head start on things. And he expressed an interest in coming to the next board meeting that you would have him attend. He wants to definitely hear from the board about the priorities that you have. So he's aware of the fact that there are policy revisions across the board that are on the radar screen. He's aware that the charter review process is well underway, and he'd be very interested in talking to the board about where you want to see him.
Yeah, and I, you know, I'm kind of, we're talking about the top two things here, really. But let's put 4.2 aside because
I think they're both they're
we're
the same thing.
we're both coming from the same thing. So 4.3, discussion of board priorities for new town council. We have Townsend Housing Authority looking into a veterans housing project. I can talk a little bit more about it well, I guess we didn't put that on here, but that's okay. But, I mean, it seems to be going well. I think they need some coordination with other boards. I think maybe we can facilitate some of that, but I'm hoping town council definitely can. Okay, I think we can maybe shortcut a lot of the groping around, because we have somebody that's used to doing things like that.
I did mention to council when I met yesterday, saying that the where is going to be, I think, a very key thing. Because people have made assumptions or presumptions about a parcel of land that might be available, and I've not done the research to determine what the legal status of the land is.
Well, they've done some work on it. I don't really want to talk about it now. I forgot to bring the folders. Just to, but just as an update, they are looking at a particular parcel of land. They were trying to look for a land swap on that parcel and found they couldn't do that. So they're still looking at that piece of land. It's over behind Atwood. And it looks like they've got enough land there. They've already talked to conservation, and I think it's working out, but those are the kinds of things that I think town council needs to get involved in. I told them about the sessions that town council's going to have, so they'll have an opportunity to talk to them. And I think that's just what we need, okay? Charter is definitely up there. We have a bunch of questions to ask town council about, should we put this in here, shouldn't we put that in here? And the charter committee knows that they're going to be available as well.
Madam Chair, I did, in speaking to Attorney Costa yesterday, I suggested that there might be better use of everybody's time if the chair of the charter committee, Mr. Page, who's here, was interested, and you, as the board's representative, and somebody that's got history having gone through the process before, met before a charter commission meeting one time soon, and he said he would make himself available. And that way there you can have a very candid discussion about where you guys are, and if he sees any, pitfalls going forward, instead of doing it, with, a thousand.
We've been keeping track, John's been keeping track of a list of questions as they've come up,
Yeah.
Clarification for this, clarification for that. And so I think after probably this week's meeting, you might have it's good timing.
Excellent.
It's good timing, okay? So certainly that. So we've got Townsend Housing Authority, and Charter, and the other one is help for planning for the marijuana,
We spoke about that yesterday as well.
okay?
He's got their specialists queued up and ready once they can officially start looking at the stuff.
And then policies, personnel policies.
All the ones coming up. All the ones listed coming up.
Exactly, okay?
So is it
Are
your
you in
wish-
agreement with all of that as the beginning of the priority list?
That's a good chunk to start with.
It is, it's a very good chunk.
Do you want, Madam Chair, then to table 4.4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, those draft policies until after that?
I think it makes sense to do that. We're not going to be entering into any personal service contracts right now that I know of.
I'm fine with that. Tabling all those.
Do it more
Okay.
comprehensively instead of
That's,
piecemeal?
that's really why I put that discussion above it.
Especially since we got additional information from your workshop that I'd like to study a little bit more.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about about that is Lauren Goldberg was there, and she did a presentation on risks and benefits of social media. And the biggest thing that she pointed out, and I never really thought about it until she said it, she said, before you do the policy, make sure that you know what your intent of use of social media is.
Yes, because The one we read, there was another one that Carolyn had printed off that I read before. There's some things missing that,
But she said it all starts with the town, with the town fathers saying, what is the intent
Right, 'cause
of your usage for social media? And then they went into all of the different ways that different communities use different kinds of social media. So she suggested you definitely want to partner with town council on that as well. And so it's good, we've got a start, we've got a framework.
Yeah, because the two sides of the coin obviously are, does the town want to have a social media presence, and if so, what is it,
And
who
what's the
manages it?
purpose? And what's the purpose?
And the
she
flip side of
said,
that coin is, if you have employees participating in social media, what are the rules?
exactly.
So they're two distinct and
those are
separate
the
things.
exact two things that I separated today when I was reading those things.
Yeah. So I think it's a good start. I don't think we're there yet. I think
Okay.
we've got a lot more discussion that needs to take place, so. So we're down to 4.9. Review, discuss town administrator goals and objectives, status report. What's happening?
Don't fret looking at the fine print on that front page.
If you
We've
can
already-
read it.
We've already seen it. It's really not the area we're going to focus. The front page is just a shrunk version of the document that's already been agreed to.
Okay.
What follows is, I'll email you the workbook. These are tabs on a spreadsheet by each of the deliverables.
Good, thank you.
So the first is dated 10/23/2018, so this is the update of this date. The first is capital, and it's the paving section. 1A, the 2015 Beta Pavement Management Plan. That's the existing plan we have. When you look at the bottom line of that, there's a $29 million backlog if every road identified were to be repaired. Obviously, that's not what the plan contemplates doing, but that just gives you kind of the scope of the far end of the thing. Yesterday, meeting with Beta, the meeting determined that they're going to provide a scope of work proposal to update the road data in the existing database. Example, the road work done since the last update in 2016. Provide ongoing system support of the database. Provide on-site training for the ongoing maintenance and updating of the data and reporting capabilities. Conduct presentations addressing our pavement and stormwater management as needed or desired. And the expectation is the proposal will come in around $7,500. Chapter 90 is an appropriate use to fund that contract. We'd have more specific info once the formal scope of work is received. There's also the possibility of coordinating our stormwater data with our Mr. Mapper, which is the GIS program that we have through MRPC. It's important, we don't currently have a GIS layer that shows our stormwater, so for stormwater reporting needs, that would be a very important part for us. So they can provide that stormwater data in a file format that can be layered onto the GIS map in Mr. Mapper. So the 1B on the front sheet was use the updated road management plan to cost out the scope of needs. So obviously that is to be determined, C1A above. When we get that revised document from them, we'll know what the data stipulates. We still have, even though it's a couple years old, we still have the plan. So you
So
can
you
still
get some
look at that
idea.
plan and pick things. It's just not as fresh because we have done some work since then. 1C is probably the more important of them all. Develop funding options for consideration at town meeting. One of the examples that was cited in our discussions was looking at Lunenburg, and I stand publicly corrected. Sue, you were correct that they do have a dedicated revenue stream, which is a portion of the excise tax. So
Did you check with Heather?
I did. I spoke with Heather briefly enough that she just indicated that I should probably speak with Jack Rodequins, who I've spent most of my time with. He's their highway superintendent.
And they did have a dedicated
They do. They
revenue stream, right?
They have a goal of getting $250,000 a year in excise tax revenue segregated out for road work on an ongoing basis. They recognize that
In addition to Chapter 90.
Right. They recognized they couldn't get there immediately. They started at $50,000 a year, and their expectation is each year as excise grows, they'll grab that first $25,000 in growth and put it into this kitty. So when you look at what I've
printed on the page here, under dedicated revenue stream, what could we do? We could prime the fund. So again, we have this dedicated revenue stream fund. We could prime that fund utilizing free cash. They did a little bit of that. They started at, I believe, 100,000. And then decrease the free cash commitment each year by a corresponding allocation of excise revenue. So if we took free cash at 250, just to start it right out of the gate and get there, because I know that there's an impetus to get some stuff done quick. Each year, you reduce the free cash allocation as you increase the amount that comes in from excise, so you're always at that 250 a year. The inside the levy limit taxation, I've listed not recommended, and that's just because inside the budget already, if we're looking to carve out 100 to 200,000, it's got to come from someplace else. And at this point in our economic life, I'm not certain that there's a place that's easily identifiable where that would come. But if you go to the next, you have your Chapter 90 annual allotment. And lastly, outside the levy limit taxation. So this is, again, to follow what Lunenburg did and several other towns have done. Several others have tried and failed. But what this contemplates is picking the figure of $4 million. There was a number in the 2015-16 beta report to do a list of main roadways that totaled $3.9 million. They may or may not be ones that the board would choose to go forward with, but just as an illustration using that data and this number, a $4 million debt exclusion paid back in 4 years and be spent over a number of years. Such an exclusion would cost approximately, if you paid it back in 4 years, about a $100,000 home, and I grant you that nobody has a $100,000 home, but it's meant really to be an easy place to multiply from. A $100,000 home would be $126 a year if you paid it back in 4 years. Just for discussion, if you spread it out over 5 years, it would go down to 102. If you spread it out over 10 years, it would go to 55. So just as illustration points, obviously the longer you spread it out, the less of an impact it is annually. Obviously, the longer you spread it out, the more you're going to pay in interest.
Except that interest is pretty good right now still.
It would be, yeah. At our bond rating, it would be very attractive. So a potential 4-year annual funding plan could see the $250,000 in excise, which may or may not be primed by free cash to begin. $450,000, which is roughly our Chapter 90 allocation, and then $1 million annually out of the contemplated $4 million debt exclusion. That'd be $1.7 million a year for 4 years, or $6.8 million for major work plan for that 4-year period. Subsequent to that, considering not going for an additional debt exclusion to keep, rolling down the road, but staying just with what is then available internally, we would see that annual $250,000 in excise and the $450,000 plus any escalators that we realize from the state in Chapter 90 for $700,000 per year thereafter.
For the maintenance.
For
ongoing.
For ongoing smaller projects and maintenance of existing.
To keep everything up. Which is pretty much the way that I remember the paving management plan was laid out.
Sure.
You're going to do a catch-up, and then you have to have the funding for, and the plan for going forward.
If you go back to town meeting in 17, if memory serves, Ed Kukula, the then highway superintendent, I think, stood at town meeting and said, I would need $6 million in order to do what it is that we're talking about doing. So, again, we're looking at 6.8 over a 4-year period under this very rudimentary understood.
But I
plan.
think breaking it down like this, it's not as scary, okay?
It's digestible.
Right, it says, and Lunenburg's done it, and I think the folks over there are real happy with having a long-term plan, and it really is how a lot of other communities do it. Maybe on the other side of 495 more than out here, but I think at some point, we have to bite the bullet and do it, because it's so important to keep up with your roads. It's good money to bad if you're not,
And you're always chasing your tail if you're relying just on Chapter 90.
You can't do it.
Proven
You
doesn't work.
can't do it. That's right.
That's kind of the first crack at a 10,000-foot view, just for this
I
update.
like it. I like it, thank you.
You get to the next page, and you'll see the second part of the capital objective was IT. So what you see here for the update for tonight is Phase 1, $53,000 plus or minus, which we have funding in hand, which is the lion's share comes from the IT grant we received from the state, and the balance is from funds that were carried over from last fiscal year encumbered to purchase equipment. The primary site being Town Hall, install and configure Dell PowerEdge server. I'm going to be saying words as though I was reading in Italian and not really knowing what they are to a
A
great
whole
extent.
bunch of stuff, okay?
One thing that I'll draw your attention to, though, Madam Chair, is as a result of a conversation with you at the last meeting, the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth bullet down is Office 365. Wassam did go and seek out some of that information regarding the best practices that you were referencing, and it's a trade-off. And if you go with Microsoft Exchange Server, there's a one-time fee up front. 365, there's a per-seat monthly fee. It becomes a question of.
But all your updates are transparent.
Yep.
It's,
No, he agrees. It's a little more costly in the long run, but in terms of security and operability, he felt that it was a good trade-off.
I mean, that was the meeting that I went to at Holy Cross. The state was there, and their IT person was saying, you got to go with 365,
Oh,
you know? And he also said, you got to go with the cloud, okay? So I guess that begs the question, you're a lot more familiar with this than I, but it does beg the question, what about, in network? Are we still talking about a physical
It is.
network that you need to go to the cloud to?
It's not as much hardware as you would think. It's certainly a lot less than trying to keep it here, because you're just basically going through one server
It's a server less than the original plan was going to be.
Okay.
that you don't have to
Okay.
replace and maintain.
Okay.
It's $16,000 a year.
And because you know more about it, I know enough to be dangerous, but one of the things, and I have the gentleman's name too, and he said, call any time from the state IT guy, because they have done this in different places, and they have made all of the mistakes already.
Yeah, is this still through Acuity?
The equipment purchase has been done off-rack by us, so we're not paying the markup, but Acuity is doing all the software and install.
Great, so
They own that part.
I just want to make
And they're on the state
sure,
bid list.
Yes.
So it makes
the
it.
only thing that's important to me is that we're not doing something one-off from the way the state
No.
is directing
and I
us.
think by using Acuity, they understand that, what the towns are going to require, because they are, like you said, they're a state bid facility, so they know the requirements.
Okay.
And it won't be a one-off, it'll be, this is
Okay,
what we've done in this town.
okay. Then I feel better.
Then you get, also as a part of this Phase 1, the secondary site water department, because there's money involved. We have other off-site locations that don't have as much of a financial impact. So the water department site is also included in Phase 1. They would also be converted over to Office 365, and the servers and cards and things that I'm not going to make even an effort to fool you that I know what they are.
Just as a question to the regional dispatch that we're talking about. Can you find out what Pepperell and Ashby use as far as server-based? If does Pepperell use Office 360, I guess is my
Okay.
question, because I'd like to standardize.
Yep.
Because I know one of the problems you guys have had with with Neshoba is you have 4 or 5 different systems trying to operate independently, which doesn't work. So if we're moving into this with the 3 towns, and we can standardize on the one, that's gonna save us money in the long run.
Sure.
Well, we're moving into it from a communications perspective, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's from a how you run the office. It's not
No,
really
no,
an IT.
I know, but they still need to interrelate, so if we're adopting a platform and this is it, it's a good thing to.
Although when you think about it, there might be an opportunity for regionalizing on that
Sure.
level
Well,
too.
that's that's where, kind of where I'm getting at, so.
Okay, okay. I do have one question regarding the IT stuff.
Yep.
I don't remember ever seeing a plan for replacing equipment. And it might be because capital planning does a really good job on the big stuff.
Right.
But do we have like a
We-
plan for how often things get replaced? Because somebody was saying that some of the stuff in the library is really old.
Yeah, some of the stuff in the library is actually vintage from the library opening, which in computer years,
That's 10 years.
yeah, is well beyond life expectancy. A lot of the systems, the machines in this building, when I got here, were
Yeah.
equally aged.
Yeah.
What Bassam has done is, in the amount that he's appropriated by town meeting every year for equipment, he's been doing a replacement of the machines in offices on a oldest first basis. I
So
think
how
one of
long
the-
will that take? I guess I'm thinking of it kind of in terms of like the road plan.
Sure. Yeah, and his expectation is to seek the same appropriation every year and then have that as follow-up, because by the time he gets through the first cycle, the first ones he did, he'll be ready to go again. So it'll be
Is
an
it
ongoing basis.
accelerated enough, is my question.
When I spoke with him as recent as just today, he says yes, with next year, he should be able to come full circle on everybody.
Because that's another one's going to have to rotate it.
Well,
Right.
that's
And
my
then-
point.
Then he would have the same appropriation the following year to start again at the beginning.
So he's doing it the right way.
Right.
Okay.
It hasn't been done, though, that way. I found a document that goes back to 14 that is called an IT work plan, and it looks like it was being thought of, this type of, hardware replacement, small stuff replacement, but it just.
Yeah, we
it
weren't
didn't
there
appear-
yet.
It didn't appear to get off the ground, but he's got us almost, in fact, mine is one of the last in the building, I think, here, that is still kind of limping along.
Because if we think about it from the perspective of, we're going in this direction for networking and cloud and 365, that takes some of the work off of him in terms of the software part of things.
Yeah.
And then allows him instead to be able to
Oh,
keep
this
up
is-
with
this
the
should take a-
hardware
This should
stuff.
take a big chunk off of his.
Exactly, this'll take a big chunk off of what he has to do now. Okay.
Lovely. So
We
the
take,
notes,
could we see what that little computer replacement plan looks like? Somebody else was talking too about, Council on Aging was talking about Karen needing a
laptop.
laptop.
Yeah, I spoke with Ms. Jackson tonight about
Oh,
that.
okay, good.
I sent a note off to Bassam to see what we've got on shelf now. I know that there's one that Andy used to use that I don't think has come out of the bag since I've been here, at least, which is 3 years, which means if it was brand new when I got here, it's already 3 years old. So I know she's not going to be
All right.
doing
All right, I just
extraordinary things with
had
it.
forgotten about that. I'm glad Jane mentioned it.
All right, just making a note on the plan. So, okay, the two notes at the bottom there, hardware is purchased and in hand, installation and software, contract with state-approved vendor, Acuity, expected November of 18, so it could be as quickly as within the next 6 weeks that they're moving towards implementation. Phase 2, scope and cost estimate being compiled. We already have the bulk of that done with Acuity's assessment that they did for us last year through that state grant we received. So just culling out the piece that's left for Phase 2, and we'll have an article for special town meeting. Next, you get to communication. 1A, B, and C. I know these are important to Wayne. I've heard him more than anyone on it. We do have Bill Hewig scheduled for November 5th. At your last meeting, I asked for permission to seek new counsel. Had a couple conversations with Bill, so he's coming out actually on the 5th to
Now,
go.
who's he?
He's one of what I'm coming to understand is just a handful of attorneys in Massachusetts to do this type of work with cable advisory commissions, both the setting up of the cable access corporations and the other piece, which is the extension of the system based on the deal that you guys negotiated back in 15.
Did Costa say anything about,
I remember
I
him
thought
saying
he said
he
something
had
about-
some familiarity with it, so.
I mentioned it to him yesterday.
Yeah.
And he says that they do have somebody, but that's one of the carve-outs they have it as well, that it's not inside the, monthly fee.
yeah, I
It's
wouldn't
an
think it would
add-on.
be.
So I had already reached out to Hewig
Okay.
in advance, so.
as long
and
as we
he
can get
recognizes Bill.
something moving
We have a
on
plan
it.
B.
Yeah, Bill is somebody, in fairness, Bill is somebody that the Cable Advisory Committee had reached out to, Carolyn, what was it, 4 years ago or so? And they didn't get any traction with him at all. I wasn't here for that part, so my hope is that we can shepherd it a little more tightly this
I
time.
mean, didn't we have somebody that wasn't
We did. We had an attorney who's
Yeah.
also very good in this field.
just really
He's
busy?
just very busy.
Okay, all right, thanks.
He's a guy we tried to have him come out to your meetings several times, and he just had conflicts that he couldn't get himself out here. In 2A, you had a couple of points, posting the YouTube channel on the town's website so people can see it from the town's homepage, so that's out there, that's complete. Posting a version of the town's fiscal year budget, year-to-date format on the website, that's done. Developing a policy to make the town website the official posting place for public notices, that policy draft is complete, but we did just vote to
Yeah,
push that off.
we'll talk about that with town
Yep.
council. I think it just needs to be tweaked.
Under 3A, volunteer fair. So that's obviously, we've been having updates on that repeatedly over the last several months. That's set to go. 4A and B, software vendor to discover the capability to export data. So the accountant is reaching out to Vadar now.
Good.
She's been, understandably, with the absence of the treasure collector, this hasn't been high on her priority list as much as it may be a priority of the board. She's just got to get the books wrapped up. So prepare an action plan to implement if the capability exists, obviously to be determined.
Is any of this stuff things that we could do a compact thing with? I mean,
Yes.
because, I've gone to like 2 things now where the lieutenant governor has spoken, and they are so anxious to work with the towns and get a consultant out to help the town,
Yeah,
so.
we got funded last year on the IT piece, so it's not spoken of, but the data would show that you're not as likely to see 2 years running.
Well, even something like accounting, they may have somebody that could come out so that Lori isn't the one having to look through it and do all of that research.
Yeah.
We might say we want to upgrade our accounting software, save time, save effort, save resources, and they might have somebody that could come out and do that.
Lori has been able to.
I'm just using that for an
Sure.
example.
But on that point, she has been able to do some exporting, very, very rough stuff. It's not particularly user-friendly, so it does need some attention, and maybe that's a place to see if it's
yeah.
already being done elsewhere.
Well, it's not even just being done elsewhere. What the lieutenant governor was saying was, if you've got something that you want done, you can apply for it, and we can, if you get the grant, we'll have a consultant come out and figure it out for you,
Right.
so
Oh, gotcha.
it's like extra help,
Right.
especially when you get a situation like Lori's in,
Which, there's another pocket of money that we look at in this next page. Under fiscal, again, for the 1023 update, identify all town assets, complete on the town website already. That's something that we've already reported out
Where is
on.
that?
The accountant's page, right? The asset inventory? Yeah, it's on the accountant's tab. Defining the life expectancy and projected replacement year and cost. This is something that Cindy was focused particularly on Northborough. I don't know if, Sue, if Arlington was yours that you had thrown out, but I do have copies of both, and they've been sitting, waiting for my attention.
And again, that might be something that we could look to the state
Sure.
for help with, too.
And obviously, that report being published on the website would be conditioned on actually having the report.
Research possibility of hiring or regionalizing with neighboring communities for part-time grant writer. I have reached out to MRPC regarding the district local technical assistance grant, and they've done some things like that in the past. They're looking at other communities in their region that might be able to benefit from that. They don't see value in trying to bring somebody on just for a few hours. They'd like to be able to cobble together 3 or 4 communities at, 10 hours a community, obviously not 10 in full stop, but maybe 20 on one week and, none on the next week, depending on the load in the community, but try to put something together for 4 communities. We haven't touched the DLTA in, I think, a couple of years, so they seem
What's
to
the
not
other
hold to that.
regional planning place that's, it's not,
Oh, this
It's not
Central
Montechusett.
Mass, right?
Central
Planning
Mass.
Commission?
I heard
Council, that's
I
the
heard
one.
some really good things,
Yeah.
at the last meeting, about them too. Because we can reach out to more than one regional
We're
planning.
we're members statutorily to MRPC, so I don't know what,
I don't know if it makes a difference. I think you can go to the other ones, but check it out.
I will.
Check it out.
Pepple's part of the Middlesex Council of Governments.
But I don't think that, the way that some of the selectmen were talking was that you could go anywhere you wanted to.
Yeah, that's not my experience, but I'll definitely
Yeah, look into it.
chase that one.
Because the more, the merrier.
2B, work with community stakeholders and local boards and commissions to determine interest in and viability of hosting a medical and/or recreational marijuana facility in town. Very simply, planning board has a draft marijuana bylaw, and they're nearing readiness for public hearing. And obviously with town council coming on,
And that's gonna be with
an
town
interface.
council. There was one other. Oh, what about regionalizing HR?
We've got a regionalization section coming up still. We've got a regionalization
Oh,
section
good.
coming up.
Okay.
So the next one is policies. We just talked about that, so we can skip right over this page for now, because that's ongoing. And we have personnel. Human Services Administrative position. This is bigger than the human resource. This was Cindy's point about looking at the fact that we are an aging community, and the data, if you follow some of the things Karen has been saying.
Talking about human resources.
Human services.
Human
Having like
services,
a
yeah.
coordinator
Yeah.
townwide for services. So that's a little bit bigger a position than we have anything even remotely funded for at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So Cindy and I have been talking about that one.
I guess the one what I'm thinking of is human resources.
Very next on that page, 1B.
Okay.
1B, determine the best course forward for human resource position, part-time in-house, part-time shared regional. Then I've got the DLTA grant discussion with MRPC on that as well.
Yeah, and
And then lastly, contract
the
services.
state, too.
Yep.
But,
You picked that up when you said it.
but definitely like a regionalization. Some of the select people that were at the last meeting, a number of them were, I was telling Carolyn about it, a number of them, because it was at Devon's, it was really good because we got a lot of the smaller communities, the western, central and western Mass communities. And there are a number of them that share human resource
Yeah,
work.
there's a listserv for the STAM, the Small Town Administrators of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And there's a section on that listserv that talks about communities that are doing that. So
And,
that's,
and one of the gentlemen that spoke was mentioning that as
From
well.
Sal, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
next, you see regionalization, conduct inventory of local regional outdoor playing field and indoor recreation facilities, work with our neighbors to maximize resources and seek to negotiate regional sharing agreements. Little to nothing done on that at all. I mean, there's a couple of websites that have been bookmarked, but nothing more.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but that's kind of like lower on my list.
Yeah, that's a,
There's too many big things for this year at
Gotcha.
least.
1B, continue to move forward toward regional animal control service. We currently have schematic design plans that have been developed for regional facility to be shared with Lunenburg that we had signed on to. The facility is out to bid with an expected award of November 2018. So this predates, I believe, both of you and your participation on the board. This took place shortly after I got here. There was a grant that Heather Lemieux, the manager in Lunenburg, wrote. And originally it was going to be Fitchburg, Lunenburg, and Townsend. Fitchburg ended up backing out, leaving just Townsend and Lunenburg. The grant was funded to do a feasibility study to have one regional animal control facility, and second round of funding was sought and received to actually build it. So there's actually funding in hand to build. It came up, I think, $2,400 short, so I have to have a discussion with the chief about his animal control budget. But the plan that had been voted into place was to have an actual animal control facility. So right now, as you may or may not know, we're functioning without a facility proper. So it's difficult to do the things that need to be done when you're, when you're fostering out or trying to find locations for any of the animals that you're picking up. The location that was targeted was directly at the public safety facility in Lunenburg, right on 2A. They have land sufficient. There's 24/7 activity on the site. Obviously, power is right there, so water is right there, sewer is right there, so septic is right there. So
Heather's working on that now?
She and I have been both working on it since Fitchburg pulled out, but she is, the town of Lunenburg is the lead applicant on the grant.
Okay.
The second part of that is discussing whether or not there's any value in actually regionalizing the service. All that's contemplated right now is a facility, so we would both have access to and share responsibility for a building and the kennels. Nothing more than that. The next phase obviously is, do we want to combine our hours that we have and staff with her hours and her staff and try to arrange for better coverage? And actually fully regionalize the service. That's the next phase that's pretty much in just preliminary discussions right now. And 1C, assess if there's value in regionalizing IT functions, proceed accordingly.
Pretty much what you were just talking about.
Yeah.
That's what we were earlier talking about. And I believe lastly is the social component, which is limited in the master sheet to opioid epidemic research and determine the value of joining the currently filed lawsuits against opioid manufacturers. We had an earlier discussion, but there was never a vote about actually joining one of these groups that are currently pursuing the manufacturers. It's a case out of the state of Ohio, and KP Law actually has probably the largest bite of that apple in terms of the municipalities in the Commonwealth. They've got a partner arrangement with the lead firm in the state of Ohio, and they're representing communities. There's no cost to the town to join. We're not billed anything, but if there is ultimately a settlement, we would get our pro rata share based on a formula that exists in the lawsuit. There are other firms that are also doing it. There's a local firm out of Fitchburg that the board also had, an earlier board also had some preliminary discussions with. It's Bonneville and Howard, and they too have a joint arrangement with the lead litigator in the state of Ohio. Same thing, no cost up front, and it's basically the same formula because it's all dictated by the one master claim that's been filed in the state of Ohio. It doesn't impact anything that were to happen if the AG's office decided to go after in a class action. This isn't a class action, it's a torts case. So those could be pursued in tandem, parallel to each other without one impacting the other. If the class action were done through the AG, we would not see a direct financial benefit. We would arguably see the benefit of some state program that would be put into place as a result of some settlement. In this case, we would see direct dollar benefit based on the formula.
I think we should definitely join that. It really doesn't, I don't really care which one.
It's not going to cost us anything.
Does not cost us anything. I've got copies of both of the documents that, obviously, they have a financial interest. They're going to make something out of the settlement, not from us, but from the settlement. So the question is, do you want to go with KP,
Can
or
you
if you
get us
want to go
copies of
with the
those?
local.
We can go through them.
Yeah, maybe we'll
Absolutely. I'll get you a
talk
copy of
about it
both.
for the next meeting.
Absolutely. And next, coordinate with local nonprofit. Example, NM Cares to employ resources the most cost-effective way. I know that the chief who's here today is participating with NM Cares on a regular basis with all of their initiatives in Townsend and beyond.
They have an upcoming seminar, don't they? I forget the name of
They
it.
haven't given me that yet, but yes, they have a yearly.
The same one they did last year?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was very good.
If you haven't been to it, you really need to go to it.
It's very good.
Jaw-dropping.
And then 1C, work with the school system on educational presentations centered on addiction. I've reached out to Dr. Ruth Potee. She's the head of, I think it's Greenfield Memorial Hospital now, and she does presentations statewide. If you go on that web link right there, I could email it to you actually to make it a little easier, so you don't have to type it. I actually, with my wife, sat and watched the presentation when she put it on at Oakmont last year.
Yeah, we talked
And-
about it.
Yeah, and it goes through the biology of the developing child brain and at what ages you're most susceptible to addiction and where the benchmarks are. If you can, statistically provable that if you can keep kids away from certain behaviors and substances until certain points in their physical, biological development, the chance of addiction goes down exponentially. And there's a whole presentation she does on that, which is really enlightening stuff. So reaching out to see if she has the ability to put one on someplace local to us. If not, talking with Brad and doing it at the high school, maybe even working regionally with a place where there's a little bit bigger of an audience, but try to get her to come to this area.
Thank you.
That's the update,
Appreciate it.
in addition to the regular day-to-day stuff.
That is the day-to-day stuff.
I wish.
So that was 4.9. 4.10, discussion regarding town administrator evaluation process, job description revisions. How old is this?
Job description goes back to 12. It was, I think, on HRS when they did their first run-through, and it's very much like the original MMA one, I think that was done probably maybe 6, Karen?
Yeah, I think it could be
Probably around 06, I think.
cleaned up, revised a little bit, but anyway,
I agree.
on the list of things to do.
Yes.
Okay, so your evaluation is due,
December 31st, on or before. I attached in your packets the language actually out of the contract between us. Each year, on or before December 31st, the board shall review and evaluate the performance of the town administrator. Utilizing an evaluation instrument to be developed and approved by the parties, performance shall be presumed satisfactory if no evaluation is conducted. This actually, I think, comes directly from my predecessor's contract language, if I'm not mistaken.
so what the process before has been to collect evaluations from each board member
Yeah,
and compile them.
Yeah, we're treading new ground, actually. I was
I
surprised.
know.
I was surprised to look back and see that I can't find a town administrator that's been formally evaluated. Whether it was Andy or Greg or Jimmy. I think Jimmy Johnson might have been evaluated.
You were evaluated last
Right,
year.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Since me, I
Yeah.
don't think that there's been one that's been done.
Yeah.
So the way it was done.
I think it was, I'm just remembering it was like, well, if everybody says that they meet, then they meet,
Right, right.
But,
It's always good from an employee's perspective to get that feedback, because the last thing you want to
I
do is
agree.
have people feeling that you're not doing the job.
Or not knowing.
And find out when it's too late to correct it. type
Yeah.
of thing. So what we did last year and 6 months before that, at the 6-month mark, or a year before that, the 6-month mark. Each individual board member did an evaluation using the form. I think the form is terrible. It is, however, the form.
Then we'll change it.
Well, it's what I've been playing against right now. So each year at this time, I say, I'd love to change it if the board wants to next year.
Can you send it to me? Because
Absolutely.
I have examples of ones I've used in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
past.
well, I've got some great ones too. It is what it is. It's one that's been used by the town since the beginning of time
Well,
for
the way
department
that,
heads.
I mean, this is just me, but the way that I look at it is, these are your goals.
Sure.
And, you
That's
know,
ninety-
I mean, you
that's
set
ninety-
goals and objectives.
That's 90% of your evaluation.
And that's, you know,
Yeah, there's a lot of other things in the existing document that I see in a lot of the other ones for positions like this that aren't specific to the goals, which are obviously a big component, but are
well,
also.
to the job description,
Right,
though.
yeah, but are also, the plays well with others,
How you do
minds
your
as
job.
P's and Q's types of stuff, the more performance but not task-specific things. So, I'd love to see what everyone's you got.
Okay.
So the way it's been done, the 2 times it's been done is each individual board member does an evaluation. They're not talking to each other, obviously, because that gets into open meeting stuff. We sit down and they say, this is what I think you did or didn't do, and I either smile or cry, and then I get each of the 3 of them. I've then combined them into one document that is then public. You have, at the end of the day, access to all 3 of them, all 3 that have been done in total, but the one that is public is the one that is a consolidated view. So you basically take the numerical average of all 3 showing.
Yeah.
I think the example we did last year and the year before was a column showing the numerical total for each select person, and then the comments.
And I can't remember what happened last year, but I keep thinking of how many times David said something about Wayland. And that was specifically because,
They were playing games, is what that was.
well, what they were doing was, the advice that we've gotten anyway is you send it to a neutral person, and that neutral person is the one that compiles it, and it's the compilation that you talk about in your meeting.
Right. I think more specific to the way.
Nobody else, you don't see it before then.
Right. More specific, in the Wayland case, they were sharing in advance of the public meeting copies of each other's evaluation, which means
Exactly. They're
he's now got the
deliberating.
benefit of a serial communication.
They're deliberating.
And then they had the chair do the consolidation, which means the chair is then seeing everybody else's. So the way we got around that and made sure we were square with that here is individual, kind of in silos. Each member meets with the TA and says, this is my piece. And then that consolidation takes place outside of a member of the board, so you're not in that box of seeing things in a serial fashion. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you get them. They're part of, my record. You'll see what each of you said about me, but only after the fact. So it doesn't color your respective evaluation.
So do we want to entertain taking a look at the form and potentially making some
Yes.
modifications to it?
Yes.
Then I nominate Wayne to be in charge of that effort and to bring it back to the board. Okay?
The one thing, just
I
because.
nominated you second?
I guess if I have to.
Yeah?
Second,
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
kind of aye.
Okay.
Kinda. And just because this is me being a nudge, I just want to be clear, the language that we have says an evaluating instrument to be developed and approved by the parties. And that's just meant to hedge against a board saying, we're going to evaluate on whether you can leap tall buildings in a single bound. And
We are.
everything. So whatever you got, we
Yeah.
get together over a cup of coffee or something and
Sure.
compare
Yeah.
notes.
That's fine.
Okay.
Awesome. Lovely.
So just bring it back to us and we can all agree on it. How's that?
Yep. And the inclusion of the classification plan language, the one job description that I'm not to have anything to do with is mine. So I'm responsible to do all of the, the nuts and bolts on all the others. So if there are things that you want to see changed or massaged or edited, I'd be happy to
Okay.
to do the typing or have Carolyn, pick up that piece, but I shouldn't be the one presenting a draft of that.
For what, for the
Job description.
job description? Yeah, I don't think I'm ready to change it now, and certainly not before December.
No, that's another,
Right.
Future thing.
I mean, I'm thinking job descriptions in general.
Yeah.
And it's actually something I want to ask town council, where does that belong? If we were to say that in the town of Townsend, we revise our charter, let's say, every 10 years, it begs the question, what other things do we charge people with redoing? And I'm thinking 3 years for a job description, and then you hand it back to the department head and say, please review this and make any changes or
I think it should be like the IT
Updates.
or the roads, you're doing a rolling,
exactly. So it's like, once a job description is 3 years old, I think it deserves a conscious look at it and say, what should be fixed or modified, or what's missing here, especially as skills change.
well, technology changes, there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, but again, that's something that goes with personnel policies.
It's in the
and
personnel
or the-
policy now.
Yeah.
It actually expressly states that providing for the studies of existing positions when there's been substantial change in the essential duties and responsibilities which justify consideration of possible reclassification.
But that's a
So-
little bit too broad for me. I'm saying,
Yep.
wait a minute, let's really say, let's pin it down and say, you're gonna look at this once every 3 years. And when a job description's 3 years old, both the person that's in that position and the person that they report to should be sitting down and saying, wait a minute, is this up to date?
Yeah, the next sentence is conduct periodic studies, so
Mm-hmm.
in place of periodic, you're
define
looking
it.
to define it.
Okay. Where are we?
11?
11, set date for town administrator evaluation.
I'd like to do it in the beginning of December, so we have the month of November.
Can I propose something different?
Yes, you may.
It has never made sense to me to have a new board, conceivably, a new board come in May and inherit goals and objectives that have already been January, February, March, April, that they had nothing to do with setting, and then have to evaluate the employee over those things that really weren't theirs to begin with. It just seems like there should be, in my prior experience in a different place, it was timed such that the evaluation comes at the end of a board's term and new goals are set with the new board. For instance, right now, the goals that we're functioning on weren't set until whatever it
September.
is. It's on here,
June, right?
May 29th, so yeah, June. So, we're already
Yep.
off kilter there to begin with,
I
so
agree. So what's your suggestion?
push it out. Push the
Push it out.
evaluation out, we can agree to change that date, by mutual agreement, from December 31st to, pick the date, April. And then we're on a cycle that I think better fits the reality of what this relationship is.
I think that makes sense.
I think it makes sense, too. It doesn't have anything to do, that's from your contract,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have any impact on your increase or anything, right? Because isn't there something that
Well,
There is
I guess
something that
arguably it
says-
could, because we
Yeah.
would need to have set the budget prior to that.
that's my point. So it needs to be before the budget is set.
Unless
Because you
unless you
need to-
budget an extra delta in the selectmen's budget on the off chance that something is due. I don't know, we can think about it.
Okay.
But just, my point is that I'm not married to the December 31st. It was what I inherited when I got here. But
Okay, so I mean, I'd be comfortable saying, instead of, well, when do we set the budget, though? It's
March 31st, evaluation by March 31st, and then you got the month of April
To
where we're going to do town meeting
solidify
stuff.
everything.
And then after town meeting and the
Yeah.
election, we put new goals in, so change it to March 31st.
Yeah.
That still gives us time to put something, if it's
Yeah.
required, into the budget.
Kind
So-
of gives, allows us to
Do you
fairly
need us to
budget.
vote on that?
Yeah, that'd be great.
March 31st.
I move that the board push out the town administrator's evaluation until March 31st, 2019.
I'll second that. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Boom.
Power through the last three.
That kind of begs another question. When I worked at, in private business, you typically have, I mean, you have your yearly evaluation, but you do have steps along the way. Because what you don't want to have happen is somebody get to the year point and
Surprise, you don't want any surprises.
you don't want surprises, do you know what I mean? So, I mean, I'm comfortable just talking to you anytime.
Right, well, we've had
Anyway,
a couple of those
yeah,
conversations where
yeah.
you've let me know that there are things that you would like to see me do differently, and
Yeah, I want you to read my mind, Jim.
no, but I think it's incumbent upon your side of this equation to keep me informed if you don't think I'm doing it. And, you know, if your choice is to hold it in and then try to, you know, sandbag me at the end, then we ended up arguing about that. It just doesn't suit anybody's purpose, so.
Okay.
I think doing the updates on the
I just
moving
think it's our,
objectives is
I
good.
think it's our obligation to make sure that we're continuously, you know, talking with employee,
I hope so.
okay?
Okay.
Not gonna wait till then. $331 is what we said, right? Request for 12/6/18 meeting, list discussion of pending articles for special town meeting. That's basically all I was saying was for the next meeting. Can we have what we have in a folder someplace or what we're thinking of?
So that should be
Would you
11/6 then.
please make sure that if it's not in the folder, you add something about the motor vehicle, unregistered motor vehicles?
Well, that kind of begs the question, is no notice has been sent out about the special town meeting telling departments to submit articles. They have been just letting me know, and I've
Why
been
don't,
keeping
why don't we,
notes.
why don't we do that,
So do you want
please?
to call the warrant open for submission of articles?
We had that scheduled at the last meeting. and I don't think
Yeah,
it was actually
we're,
voted,
I
right?
know,
Yeah.
we didn't vote on it though, huh?
Okay,
Do we have to do
so
that tonight?
notice should go out. I can send the
could
notice
just
out.
send the
We can do
notice.
an official vote next time. That's-
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, just
Just to
make
get it
sure,
started.
but you know what would be helpful, I think? The list that you sent out with the dates.
Mhm.
Can you enclose that with it so that they see what the timeline is?
Oh, the
So
vote.
this thing?
Subject to your
Yeah.
voting it at the next meeting
Yeah.
officially.
Okay?
Gotcha.
For 13, Boston Post Kane Award announcement and proclamation. We have a new Post Kane Award coming this weekend.
Okay. Whereas the Boston Post cane has traditionally been transmitted to the oldest citizen of Townsend, and whereas Catherine Warner Proctor Boys Wilson, born in the year 1918, has been recognized as the town of Townsend's oldest resident. Whereas Catherine Warner Proctor Boys Wilson is one of the personalities that gives the town of Townsend and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts unique history and character. And whereas Catherine Warner Proctor Boys Wilson was an active youth and adult member in the Townsend Grange, the Prescott Grange of Pepperell, North Middlesex Pomona Grange, and the Massachusetts State Grange, holding offices of importance. And whereas Catherine Warner Proctor Boys Wilson was special education teacher at Spalding Memorial School and other area schools, and whereas Catherine Warner Proctor Boys Wilson served on many town committees, such as the 225th Picture Book Committee, the 275th Anniversary Committee, where she was featured on the Proctor Family Float, which displayed the nearly 300 years of her family's contributions to life in Townsend. And whereas Catherine Warner Proctor Boys Wilson was an active member of Townsend's Historical Society and was made an honorary life member, and is often thought of by many as Townsend's historian. And whereas Catherine Warner Proctor Boys Wilson assisted the author and Townsend town clerk in the creation of the book titled Townsend's Vital Statistical. And now therefore, we, Sue Lizio, Cindy King, Wayne Miller, Selectmen of the Town of Townsend, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, hereby bestow to Catherine Warner Proctor Boys Wilson, the Town of Townsend's Boston Post cane, with all respect, honors, and distinctions transmitted therein, and therefore the Board of Selectmen urge all citizens to join the Board of Selectmen in honoring Catherine Warner Proctor Boys Wilson for a great accomplishment in venerated age, dated this 21st day of October, in the year 2018.
Congratulations,
Yes.
Catherine. 414, Board of Selectmen announcements, updates, and reports. What do you get there?
I have one from the police chief, October 27th, 2018, which is Saturday? This Saturday, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., it's the National Prescription Take-Back Initiative. Please bring prescription pills that you do not need or that are expired to the Townsend Police Station, 70 Brookline Street, for proper disposal. Sorry, no liquids or sharps. This is very important to not get in our water supply, as has happened in the past, so I urge everybody to.
Well, not to have them laying around where people might get a hold of them either, you know?
That's what a lot of people do, they run from their parents or grandparents.
Yeah, I know when my husband passed away, that was the first thing that I did, was to take any of the pills that he had, because he was on a bunch of different meds.
Last year, we
And get rid
collected
of 'em.
approximately 2,000 pills.
That's great. I think the pharmacy collects some things
They
too.
do, the pharmacies take them as well.
Yeah, the pharmacies take them as well, so.
Are you going to do that anymore this year? I know you did one this spring. Are you going to continue to have
As
these
long as,
regular?
yeah, we'll do it on the days that, generally we do it on the days that it's done across the country or in the area.
And do people bring them in the original containers?
They bring them in bags and containers.
Yeah. I think it's important sometimes to bring them in the containers, because then you can identify what they are too.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, we don't spend a lot of time on it, we just make sure they are what they are and put them in the container.
Okay,
okay,
that's all I have.
I have nothing. We're all set.
Last one.
Review and sign payroll and bills payable warrants.
I move the board sign payroll and bills payable warrants outside of session.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Carolyn, you're gonna take care of that one piece?
It's on my desk.
Okay, thank you.